Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, flying solo. First off, let me say Happy New Year to all y'all out there. It's been a minute since I've done an episode. Life gets in the way. Hope you had a good holiday season, by the way. Just working on some other stuff outside of basketball life, writing a new story. A bank heist story, so we'll see how that goes. But just wanted to talk about this Warriors game. They're 15 and 17 now, or are they actually 16 and 17? They're 16 and 17 now. And the Warriors, they beat the Orlando Magic 121-115 on the second night of 2024. There's a lot to say about this game. I'm not going to overreact to one game, but Orlando is a good team. They're one of those young teams that's drafted well in the past few years, and they're very good. We've seen the Warriors struggle against teams like this, but the difference between, say, the Orlando Magic and maybe OKC is that OKC is a lot more, I'd say, athletic in spots, and they're better. They're just better than the Magic in general. That being said, this was a much needed win, and I liked what I saw in terms of, there's a lot of balance in scoring in this game. It was a nice balance between young and old Warriors. If you look at it in terms of the young dudes that played, Kuminga at 19, Jackson Davis 10, Pods 10, and for the olds, it was CP3, 12, Steph 36, Clay 15, Wiggins 10. So, it was nice spreading around there. And I know it's just one game, but this is the kind of stuff that you really, really want to see. There's a lot to be said. I've had a lot of opinions over the past couple of weeks that I haven't put out an episode, but it's nice to come on after a win so that there's some positive vibes, more or less. The Warriors, they went on that 5-game winning streak, and then they lost a couple of bad games. And so it's like, where is this team? What is this team right now? Will they make a move? Do they need to make a move? It's funny because you go on social media, in particular Twitter, Warriors Twitter, and people are always bickering back and forth. It's kind of entertaining and very, very silly, but there is a lot more stratification amongst the Warriors fan base because they're all like in different camps, right? Like trade Kuminga, keep Kuminga. Obviously, I'm on the keep Kuminga side. Draymond is somebody the Warriors should jettison, but then no, Draymond, respect the guy. He brought 4 titles, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of stuff when a team is losing. There are a lot of opinions out there, some really dang good ones and some really, really absurd ones. But I'm not going to get into any of those. I will just say that, taking a step back, right? I do think the Warriors, it'd be nice if they made some kind of moves. But if you take a step back to the beginning of the season when they were 6-2, when everything looked so sunny and rosy, and when Steve Kerr was last year was the exception, this year's the norm, and they pretty much have the same record as last year. But to me, when you look at this Warriors team from back then, it was okay, great. You were relying on the 5 starters who'd been statistically plus minus wise the best 5-man unit in the NBA the last couple of seasons. And then you were hoping that the bench would be a stronger mix of young guys and veterans. And that's why you brought Dario Saric, Chris Paul, etc. But then it was the starters who didn't hold their end of the bargain. They didn't hold that up. And all of a sudden it was the Warriors need to make moves. But Clay has rounded into form to some extent. Let's face facts. I don't remember if I've said this already, but Klay Thompson has maxed out his ceiling for post-injury recovery. He's healthy, but he's also 34, and he's never going to get back to what he was before. And the sharpshooter stuff, great. If he's on, and he's important to have on the court, but he just can't guard quicker, younger guys anymore. quick point guards, quick two guards, athletic two guards. He can guard small forwards and maybe some smaller power forwards, but you have to mix that in and balance the roster and the rotations. But, hopefully he's starting to continue to play within himself. You know what I mean? Not trying to do too much. Yeah, he'll have games where he'll shoot like 1 for 11 and everybody's like, where's Moses Moody? I was like, where's Moses Moody? You know what I mean? Because in the previous game that they lost, it was like this whole thing about Kerr playing the younger guys and going with a hot hand was because he didn't pull Clay and leave Moses Moody in there. You know what I mean? Against the Kings. And Moses Moody had played well, but then all of a sudden it's like in that exact same situation, Moody gets a DNP and Clay, sulks. You know what I mean? So when you really, really look at it, it's like you have Clay and then you have Wiggins who's starting to play better. Now, Wiggins, I like Wiggins. I've always liked Wiggins because he just seems like, I don't know the guy, but he seems like a good dude. He may not love basketball as much as the next guy. He may not be as loud or as, terribly competitive as the next guy, but he seems like a good dude. But for all the people out there who are saying like trade Kuminga, keep Wiggins, whatever, it's like hands down, no question to me, I keep Kuminga over Wiggins, right? Because we know Wiggins, his ceiling. We've seen it. We saw it. It might be gone. And Kuminga still has so much more growth. He's only 21 years old. And to me, he wants, here's the thing, like I don't begrudge Wiggins, but the fact of the matter is like Clay started off poorly and Wiggins started off poorly. And those are your two starters that you rely on. And Clay at least has a built-in excuse. He has 2 terrible leg injuries, and he also is 34. Wiggins is not even 30 years old yet, and I know that he busted a rib in the playoffs against the Lakers last year, but he should be good to go. If he's not on the injury report, then where's the effort and whatnot? So when I look at Kuminga, I watch that guy closely over the last few years, and that guy just seems to want it. He seems to be always competitive and always bringing it. And here's the thing. There's all these people out there who say Kuminga has low basketball IQ. There was that story from Stephen A. Smith before last season saying that somebody in the Warriors organization was saying that Kuminga doesn't work as hard. But I just don't give that any credence because look at the guy. He's competing. He knows what he has to do to stay on the court, and he's trying to do those things against Orlando. 34 minutes, 7 for 14, only 1 for 5 from 3, but clearly he was hitting his twos. 4 for 5 from the free throw line, 6 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks, +9, 19 points. I mean, that's an excellent all-around floor game for Jonathan Kuminga. Yes, he can do some things better. Yes, he can go left a little bit better, although it's much better than it was maybe a year ago. And then, there's some decision making, but all that stuff is evolving. You're seeing it. He's making the extra pass. He's not relying or settling on 3-pointers, on deep threes. He's going to the basket, and he's going to the basket with more authority. He's not just settling for a pump fake fade. He's getting to the backboard. He's getting layups, and his touch is pretty good, both left and right. So these are things that are evolving with him. And there's a lot of people that are impatient, and I just don't get it. I understand that everybody's freaking out because the Warriors are still below 500. They're mediocre. They haven't gotten rid of the stink of last season. But here's the thing, right? Like all this chatter about copying the Spurs, right? The Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker analogy to Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. The Spurs had Kawhi. The Warriors had several chances to find a Kawhi type. Maybe Poole was going to be that young bridge player to the future. Maybe Wiseman at some point. People thought that. But then you have Kuminga and Moody. I mean, if you're looking for a bridge player who has a certain level of talent, then he's right there. I'm not saying Kuminga is Kawhi. That is a very, very high bar. But the kid is 21 years old. He's looking better and better. And I don't know what his ceiling is. We don't know it. So I think that it can be pretty darn high. And let's face facts, he is not as far along as he would have been in his third season if he'd been on another team, right? He just didn't play his rookie year, barely. And then last season he played a good amount and then got yo-yoed out of the lineup during the playoffs. And this season, I feel like the national media doesn't really watch Jonathan Kuminga play because it's always like, oh, he's, not ready. He's too wild. He's not good enough and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't play the Warriors way. I think that's BS. You know what I mean? People who say he's too selfish. I saw somebody say that he is like Jordan Poole in his selfishness. And I just don't see that at all. You know what I mean? Like if he came into the league the same year as Draymond, everybody would love him for all that stuff, for his desire to be great, for his recent quotes about no one in the league being able to guard him or whatever it was, some equivalent to that. So to me, if you let this kid finally make his mistakes, he'll have his ups and downs. People are saying, I've seen talking about how they don't trust him to not screw up in the playoffs. It's like, okay, you're not basing that on anything, like the kid has to be able to play and grow. And if you're not willing to see that or do that, then, we just have different perspectives on what it means to be a fan of a team. I want to see this team be good into the future. And I'm not saying necessarily that, Kuminga is going to carry them that way. But hey, I did say the day he got drafted that he was going to be the Warriors' best player in 4 years from then, which is 2021 to 2025. And who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But there could be a world where he's top 1, 2, 3, whatever. You know what I mean? That being said, I would like to see him just continue to play. And it's funny, right? Steve Kerr said that playing Kuminga and Wiggins together is just something he can't do. I find that really odd because people talk about how their numbers together this season are really low, like they're plus minus and stuff like that. But to me, you have to toss that out because Wiggins had such a terrible start to the season that anybody with him is going to be low plus minus. So to me, last season, my favorite roster rotation, whatever guys on the floor, was Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond. Because you had defense, you had athleticism, you had youth, you had veteran leadership, you had shooting, all that, right? Now, I don't know if that's necessarily their best lineup because Draymond isn't around anymore and Clay is not necessarily as dependable, right? But that being said, I find it really odd. And to me, it's like, why can't you play them together? Because Kuminga plays Draymond's role, unless you're just trying to protect Draymond's job again. You know what I mean? But anyway, this is what I want to see from Kuminga and Steve Kerr playing these guys. Trayce Jackson-Davis should continue to be the starting center. He just brings a lot more overall to what this aging team needs. He brings some athleticism, some heft, some inside scoring, some defense, the ability to block more shots. No disrespect to Looney, but I think Looney is going to be a great backup at this point. And when you look at someone looking at Podziemski just as another young dude, again, continue to be impressed by that kid. 28 minutes, 4 for 7 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3. Only hit 1 out of his 4 free throws, but I ain't tripping on that. 4 boards, 2 assists, 10 points. I mean, that kid is really, really, really impressive. Watching the Miami Heat in the last week play the Warriors, it's like Jaime Jaquez, you know what I mean? Like, that was a guy that some of the Warriors fans wanted to fall to us, and he was picked right before Podziemski. And to me, like, would I prefer him over Podziemski? I don't know right now. I don't know right now. I know Jaquez is 6'7". He's a wing. He plays different, but right now, Podziemski is really, really solid, and he's our guy. He makes the Warriors smaller, but he's not super tiny. Apparently, he's 6'4". He does look smaller than 6'4" to me on the court. But maybe someone like Podziemski allows Mike Dunleavy to move maybe Chris Paul. I mean, I've said that if I was gonna move anyone off the Warriors, it would be Moody and Chris Paul in a package. I like Moody a lot. I just think it sucks that he can't get any playing time in this rotation. And I see why. I see where the blocks are, right? He can't get ahead of Wiggins. He was ahead of Kuminga for like a couple of days until, Kuminga was getting a DNP, and then he came into a game and played really well in the second half. I forgot who it was against. He's not going to get in front of Podziemski. He's not going to get in front of Klay Thompson anytime soon, apparently, even though there's games where it's like, yo, what the heck? But if I'm Rich Paul, if I'm Moses Moody's agent, I'm like, dude, move the guy. You know what I mean? Move the guy. And also I'd move Chris Paul because of his contract. Maybe it makes it easier to get somebody of worth. I don't know. You know what I mean? Because maybe Podziemski is able to run second unit offense enough. Or maybe you move Chris Paul and you give Moses Moody those minutes. I have no idea. But I wouldn't mind if they made a move. I just don't want them to move Kuminga. I saw that Bill Simmons said the Warriors should try to move Wiggins and Kuminga for Pascal Siakam. First of all, I don't know if Toronto does that. Second of all, it's like I don't see a universe where the Warriors trade their two most athletic players, who happen to be wings, the prime position in this league, for Pascal Siakam, who's not that athletic and is a terrible three-point shooter. You know what I mean? I mean, he's athletic enough compared to Klay Thompson, Steph, Draymond, whatever, but he's not what you need in terms of a perimeter defender or anything like that. So I just don't buy that, but I can see why Bill Simmons would want to hasten the Warriors' demise by making them even slower and more stuck in cement. One more thing, Gary Payton, the second newly back from an injury that wasn't as bad as we'd all thought it was going to be. It was a calf injury before, but he came back recently, and then in this one, he just kind of stumbled and hurt his hamstring. He tweeted out, this is some BS, a GIF, a meme about that. And hopefully he's not out for very long. But again, maybe that opens up minutes for Moses Moody. It didn't open them up in this game, but we'll see down the road. I mean, at the end of the day, this Warriors team, they just have a lot of okay players. You know what I mean? Okay players. A lot of players who either have been great or players that could be great. It's just that they didn't thread the needle well enough. You know what I mean? I'm not going to call it two timelines because that has such negative connotations in this space, but it's one of those things where, they didn't play Kuminga and Moody enough to develop them. And then by the time they needed them to really, really perform, their vets like Klay and Wiggins and Looney have fallen off. So they don't have the young guys ready to go, and they didn't anticipate these older guys falling off so hard, let alone Draymond just not being around. So, maybe if they played these dudes last year, they'd be making fewer mistakes. But again, who knows? Kuminga looks good. He'd probably be further along if he got more minutes last season. And of course, same with Moody, a guy, again, who played in the Western Conference Finals against the Mavericks 2 years ago and didn't play last year in favor of Anthony Lamb, and now is benched behind, Podziemski, Chris Paul, and Kuminga again. So it's a bummer for that dude. But hopefully Gary Payton II comes back soon. You know what I mean? Like, these guys have the makings of a decent team. Yes, they're small, but hey, the whole plan was for the veterans to hold down the fort and then allow the young guys to get ready for the playoffs by playing them, getting them experience, getting ready for the bright lights, all that jazz. That plan is kind of twisted, in my opinion, now because of all the veteran stuff and Draymond being out and the young guys, like, you know, being yo-yoed everywhere, and Steve Kerr searching for lineups that work and whatnot. But it is what it is, and we'll see what happens when the trade deadline comes up. Who knows? Next game, maybe Kuminga plays terribly, and then everybody turns against him all over again. But hopefully not, because I like that kid. Most athletic dude I've seen in my Warriors fandom on this squad. More athletic than Richardson, Petrus. Who else was there? Spreewell, you know, just in terms of his size. So, yeah, that's all I got for now. Once again, Happy New Year. I'll try to do this podcast a little bit more often, a little tight on time these days, but we'll definitely be back sooner rather than later. All right, that's all I got.